One thing that I came across early on, and I was asked this question actually about a month ago, it wasn't actually connected with the sacred nights, but is, why isn't humility one of the virtues listed? It seems like humility should be in there. And it's really interesting because I always felt that too. But I always struggled also with the definitions that were being thrown around about what is humility exactly. And if you look it up, it will say things like to be low, to be less than, to put yourself lower than something else, okay? But if you look deeper, if you dig deeper, humility comes from the Latin root. It does have the Latin word humilis, which is lower. But there's also humus, Humus, which is earthly. So to be humble is to be on the earth, fully, completely, totally on the earth. To be human with the same Hum, to be on the earth, to be an earthly being. And over the years, I've heard lots of definitions of humility or what it means to be humble. I grew up with church definitions that definitely focused on, you should be humble. You should humble yourself in the presence of this person or that person, which often meant don't ask questions, don't challenge anything, don't challenge that status quo, because you don't question someone in a place of authority or, question what they're saying or doing. You don't question what's in the Bible or those kinds of things. And finally, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I heard a definition of humility that I loved, and it really stuck with me. And that definition is that to be humble is to be all that you are and nothing you are not. And in that, there's nothing about being low. The definition, the idea of being lower than or low actually came from the idea of being on the earth, which in our history, people thought that was like the lowest of the low when it came to spirituality. We tended to revere spirit and think of human or earthliness as being lowly, okay, as compared to spirit. But then I also remember reading something, I believe it was Rudolf Steiner that said this, and I've mentioned Rudolf Steiner as one of the visionaries that I have studied over the years, and his philosophy being anthroposophy. I believe it was him that said this, that human beings are the religion of the gods. And that also is so powerful. This as above, so below. I'm not saying that these are the answers, and I don't want you to take it as answers. I am offering ideas, insights, questions, imaginations, inspirations, right? And see what resonates for you. For me, it really did resonate that all my life, I always heard about the God that is punitive, the God that won't accept you. I remember, gosh, in the Catholic Church once, I was like, I heard this idea that if a baby doesn't get baptized, they won't go to heaven. And as a child, it was like, what? How could a baby not go to heaven? What have they ever done wrong? What would be awful about that? And the idea of hypocrisy in the church, I continued to see again and again. And that's not to say I don't believe there's a place for religion. Religion in itself really just means coming together, unifying, the sacred union. And I believe wisdom traditions and religions can help us find our path to ourselves and to source. And I've shared a bit in the article on the archetypes that ultimately what we're here to do as human beings is to find that sacred marriage, that sacred union between soul and spirit. Our soul is here for a journey, and yet we can't remember the spiritual essence or source from which we've come. And the soul is often depicted as feminine and the spirit as masculine. And so we bring together these polarities and we invite this in. And so the soul work that we do every year with these sacred nights of winter is so critical.